Today I'm going to teach you how to make a cheddar jalapeno bacon loaf of artisan bread. This bread is super fluffy and light and beautiful for making into sandwiches, especially a grilled cheese sandwich to go into my roasted tomato soup. Yum! I'm going to show you two simple ways to bake this loaf and show you how fast it actually all comes together. Welcome to Food Crazed. We're going to start off by cooking some bacon in a skillet. I'm going to cook up about 5 pieces of bacon and cook them just till they're nice and crispy. Once the bacon is finished cooking, I like to put it onto a paper towel that is on a plate so that the grease can kind of drain off of the bacon. Let's make our dough. In a large bowl, add 3 cups of all-purpose flour. Then add 1 teaspoon of salt and half of a teaspoon of yeast. We're going to fluff this together with a fork. Now to this, we need to add 1 to 2 cups of shredded cheddar cheese, 4 or 5 pieces of cooked bacon that's crumbled, and 2 to 4 tablespoons of minced jalapeno. Either jarred jalapeno or fresh jalapeno work fantastic in this recipe. And then we just need to go ahead and stir this all together with your fork. The last ingredient, we need to add 1.5 cups of warm water. Now just stir this all together with your fork until everything is combined. Making bread from scratch does not need to be difficult. It's actually very simple to put together. If you have a bowl and a fork, you can do this. We're going to cover the bowl with some plastic wrap and we're going to let it sit undisturbed on the counter for right around 8 hours or overnight. I always make my dough the night before and let it rise overnight and then bake it anytime the next day. Let's talk about 2 different methods for baking this loaf of bread. First, we'll talk about the oven baking method. We're going to be using a cast iron Dutch oven with a lid, and we're going to place this inside of the oven. Then, while the cast iron's inside the oven, we're going to preheat the oven to 450 degrees so that the cast iron gets nice and hot. Meanwhile, we're going to prepare our dough and get it ready for baking. Lightly flour a work surface. Now scoop the dough out of the bowl with your hands and place it right onto the floured surface that we prepared. We need to form the dough into a ball, so just do this simply by pulling up the edges and lightly flouring the surface. And then I like to flip it upside down and place it onto a parchment paper that I've prepared. There's our cute little ball of dough, and we're going to let this set on the parchment paper to rise for another half hour to 45 minutes. Now just slash an X on top of the dough. It's time to bake our dough. Let's bring our really hot cast iron Dutch oven out of the oven. Now, if you're not using parchment paper, you can at this point just lightly spray the inside with nonstick cooking spray. But because I have parchment paper, I'm able to lift up the sides of this and gently place our loaf of bread into the Dutch oven. Place the lid back on top. Now remember, the lid is extremely hot. It should be 450 degrees, so use an oven mitt when doing this. Now just bake this in the oven covered for 28 to 30 minutes. Remove the lid and continue baking for an additional 10 to 15 minutes uncovered. Your bread is done when it's a nice golden brown color on the top. Transfer the bread onto a cooling rack which is also like a cookie rack, and remove the parchment paper if you're using parchment paper. Let your rustic artisan loaf of bread cool before slicing. Now let's talk about our slow cooker method. After your dough has rested, we are going to turn the slow cooker to high. We're going to go ahead and slash an X on the top. I highly recommend using parchment paper for this particular method when you're using a slow cooker. It just helps that the dough will come out easier in the end after it's baked. Let's talk about two options for covering the slow cooker. Option number one, a double layer of paper towels over the top, or option number two, which is a clean dish towel placed over the top. Then just place your lid back on top. The towel between the lid and the slow cooker just helps to absorb any moisture so that condensation doesn't drip down onto the bread while it's baking. Bake the bread on high for 2 hours. After 2 hours, you can go ahead and remove the towel and remove the bread from the slow cooker. The bread is actually fully cooked at this point, but it doesn't brown on the top, and that's totally fine if you're okay with that and want to serve it like that. But I'm going to show you this browning technique. Place your loaf of bread onto a baking sheet and place this under the broiler for 3 to 5 minutes until it's nice and golden brown on the top. Transfer the bread to a cooling rack and let cool before slicing. After the bread has rested and cooled, it's much easier to slice, and just take a serrated edge and then you can just work it down and make these wonderful slices. And you can see here the bread, oh my gosh, it's fluffy. It has lots of wonderful holes in it that, you know, it really shows that it's very airy and light and soft and just perfect. You can just put some butter right on top of this and eat it with any meal that you're serving. One extra bonus is that your house will smell amazing when you're baking a loaf of bread. We love taking this loaf of bread and making sandwiches out of it. I'm going to show you today an extra little bonus recipe here. We're going to make it into a grilled cheese. With a cast iron skillet, we're going to lightly butter the bottom of the cast iron skillet. Now we're going to take one of our slices, which has been lightly buttered, and place it butter side down onto your skillet. I'm going to add 1 slice of pepper jack cheese, and then we're going to sprinkle in some shredded cheese blend that I'm putting on the inside of this grilled cheese sandwich. Add 1 more slice, buttered side up on top. I'm grilling this on about a medium to medium high heat, and I'm going to grill it until both sides are a nice golden brown color. This is by far one of the best grilled cheese sandwiches, hands down. Not only do you have this rustic homemade loaf that you made, that is a cheddar jalapeno bacon loaf, but then you've got this ooey gooey pepper jack cheese with a mixture of cheese blend with like cheddar and other flavors just coming out of it. Oh my gosh, what a fantastic grilled cheese sandwich that this particular loaf of bread makes. And dunking this in a tomato soup, oh my gosh, it's so delicious. This happens to be my roasted homemade tomato soup, and I will put the link down below to the full video on how to make this tomato soup from scratch. And these two flavor combinations together are such a winner. I hope you're able to have the time to make this recipe and try it out. I will put a link below down in the description to the full printable recipe for this cheddar jalapeno bacon loaf. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel so you don't miss another yummy recipe. Thanks again for watching.